Welcome to the last section, the nature of export. In this section we'll learn about the final steps of producing a game. First of all, we'll finish implementing our control scheme so that the game can also be played on mobile devices with touchscreens. We'll use the Unity UI to achieve that. Then we'll look at the very basics of the steps required to export the game. Let's start with implementing the mobile input for the game. In this video we'll learn about the moving controller and jump controller. With that said, let's get going. The last step to conclude our game is to make it mobile friendly. So far we can move the character only with a keyboard, but what about the mobile devices with a touchscreen instead? To implement the system, we'll use the UI system in Unity, which is already suitable for gathering input from touchscreens. Let's start by creating a UI image by right-clicking on the hierarchy panel and then on UI image. We can use the graphics provided in our package. In this case, the graphic that we need looks like a triangular button. We'll place the source image here. Using the knowledge from the previous section, let's scale it to the right size and place it well in the UI. Name this button left. Then do the same for the right button. Finally, use the up arrow from the other side of the screen. Then change its name to button jump. Wonderful! Now we can make them interactive with a bit of scripting. Check all the anchors if they're placed properly. Our next topic is moving controller. So let's create a new C# script and name it UI_moving controller. Open the script. First of all, we need to add a using statement so we can use the handlers for the Unity event system. To do so, add this line before the declaration of the class. Then, in the declaration of the class itself, we need to implement two interfaces to intercept every time that this button is pressed or released. As a result, we can determine when the button is held down. The first interface is iPointerDownHandler, whereas the second one is iPointerUpHandler. You write them after the inheritance from mono behavior. Before we implement the interface, we need to add a couple of variables. Add serialize field before every variable. The first one is to store the reference to the movement component of our character. The second variable is the direction, which indicates if this is a button that goes right or left, respectively placing a value of +1 or -1. These must be private variables, but serializable, so that they can be set in the inspector. Also, we need a third variable to store whether the button is held down, which needs to be private. We'll call that ball_is_holding. Now, in the awake function, we need to check if we're running in a mobile environment. If not, we destroy the whole button from the interface, since we don't need to show it anymore. For that, we'll add the following function. This function will check if we're using the mobile interface. If not, it will destroy the button. In the awake function, we can also check that the reference to the movement component is properly set. This is the code for that purpose. Next, we can implement our interfaces. In the first one, with the onPointerDown function, we just need to set isHolding to true. Similarly, for the second interface with the function onPointerUp, we set isHolding to false. Finally, we add a late update function. In this function, we pass the direction to the movement component if isHolding is set to true. Save this file and add it to both the buttons. For the right direction, set it to +1. And left direction, -1. Let's look at Jump Controller. Create a new C# script and name it UI_Jump Controller. As we did for the UI_Movement Controller, we need to insert the using statement for using the event systems. Then we need to implement just the I-pointer down handler, because we don't need to check when the button is held, but rather jump every time the button is pressed. So add the pointer here. Again, the movement component variable is needed, but it's the only variable we need this time. The next function is the awake function. In the awake function, we still need to check if it's running in a mobile environment. If not, we can destroy the whole button from the interface. We also need to check if we have the reference to the movement component. So add these lines of code. Finally, in the implementation of the interface, we can make the call directly to the jump function of the movement component. Save the script and attach it to the jump button. Then set the reference to the movement component and we're good to go. This is how it should look in the inspector. That's all for this video.